Welcome to LeCorner, La Source's digital show dedicated to the sport and entertainment industry. Every 2 weeks, we invite a professional to share their experience, background, and challenges. The sport industry moves fast, and having their insights is the best way to keep up to speed. Welcome to LeCorner.
American football fascinates and attracts mainly younger generations. For this new LeCorner episode, we had the pleasure to receive Pierre Trochet, president of IFAF, the International Federation of American Football, and former player himself. Pierre also was director of development at the French American Football Federation. In this episode, we discussed what is both his mission and passion, the development of the game around the world in terms of popularity, business, and investments. He also shares with us his entrepreneurial journey and delivers some well-meant advices. Enjoy it. Hello, Pierre. How are you doing?
Hey, everybody. Thanks for having me. Pretty glad to be here, doing very well on this still sunny but winter day, so it's all good.
I find it quite funny to have two Frenchmen sitting down together, like recording a podcast in English. I hope the North American or the English community will appreciate it to try discussing in their own language the one of the biggest games, especially in North America and in the US, especially having two Frenchmen discussing it.
Let's give our best. Let's give our best shot.
Yeah, so you might be a bit familiar with our podcast, and what we like to do is to start with a quick presentation of our guest, and so could you please like a short overview of your journey and who you are?
Yeah, well, I'm Pierre Trochet. I'm 36 years old, nearly 37. I come from a small city in the center of France called Châteauroux, and I was lucky enough that I could spend a lot of my life so far traveling around Europe and over the world because of football, mostly after my study. I'm a true lover of the game. I played the game in France, in Austria. I was also a part of the national team with staff experience and all that. So football is for me a true passion, and I'm lucky enough that I don't have to wake up to go to work any day because I can make the game better, and this is my full-time occupation at the moment. So very, very glad about that.
So let me pause here. So you were a professional player, and you come from Châteauroux, who is, for those who don't know, a very small city in France. And so how come you become passionate about these sports and try to become professional in that sport?
It's a funny story. I mean, first of all, just I don't really feel that I was a professional football player because you don't make a sustainable living out of Europe. So I'd rather say that I was lucky enough that I could enjoy to get a little bit of pocket money sometimes to play the game, but most of it was the experience of being able to travel around Europe and to pay for my study with football and all that. So it was more of an experience as a young guy trying to play his passion than being a professional athlete. All those guys deserve way more respect than what we could call professional players of American football in Europe. So, yeah, I mean, Châteauroux is not famous for a lot of things, and then I appreciate that you've been very kind, saying that it's a very small, middle-sized city. But Châteauroux was actually one of the biggest NATO bases after World War II, and the airport was one of the only one which was big enough to land some cargo aircraft coming from America, and therefore. There was an American base over there, and of course they played football. They played flag football, and back in the days it was a team called the Châteauroux Sabre, and they were one of the top actually high school all over Europe. They won the European competition many times in the late 50s and 60s, and all of that somehow disappeared when de Gaulle withdrew NATO from France from NATO. But my father and my uncle were actually in love with this American way of life, as you could see it back in the 80s. And somehow Châteauroux always was, the local economy was always based on the American style, American military base, and all of it. So it was just natural somehow that someone found that football was cool and tried to play it in the middle of France. So it was like back in 1989 that the club was created. My father was a part of it. My father never played. Back in the days, you had to order some VHS cassette back in the States to brought it in France, watch the game, and you watched them so much that the cassette were completely burned. And therefore, I started to play football. I was 6 years old. It was the year of the US Dream Team, and obviously I switched to basketball. But my father always said that I should keep on playing football, because by the time that I grew up, the sports will be Olympic, which obviously tackle football will never be. But the whole story where we are right now in the middle of IFAF is just fantastic because of that. And here I am. Here I am coming from a small town, as you said, as the head of the International Federation of American Football.
Oh, but I love the history lesson. Really, like I didn't know much about Chateauroux, the port, and the American culture. So I'm really glad I asked the question. And so while you were also talking, like I was wondering, so you can't make a living out of being a professional. So I was wondering, it was part of the studies, like was it some kind of an add-on or something where you had to split the time, like it can happen in other sports?
Well, it happened. You have to manage your study time, and of course you have to work sometimes with a sponsor. So you are granted a few hours of work without really being there all the time. It's working like that in Europe. But once again, I was just lucky to be at the right time, at the right moment, at the right place, because basically for the last 14 years now, almost, I'm lucky to have only football. Not as an athlete, but as a manager, as a developer. I worked as a coach at the academy. I work as an administrative director at the academy, and then I was also working for the regional league. Went back in Picardy when I was playing for the Spartans for last year in France, and therefore I could just move on and work for a club, for the regional league, and then for the federation, and now for the international federation. So all in all, I would not consider that I earned my life by the gridiron, by the field of play, but because of things that are happening on the side.
Okay. But anyway, I mean, and this is something we've discussed as well, even prior to the podcast. It seems that you have a background as an entrepreneur, and you've started also to invest in different companies. So, is it part of your life where you need to make a living of yourself, or is it more something also coming from the culture itself and potentially a bit more of the American football culture and the American culture around entrepreneurship and being a self-made man? Because ultimately becoming an entrepreneur, such early stage in your career, it's not something that frequent in Europe. I mean, that's not something very common. So how do you explain that?
It's not something that common, but I believe that our generation are probably the first one that would get the courage enough to fly by their own wings and be able to crash, but learning, have a damage control crashing moment, and in order to grow and to learn from new experience. I think it was probably more difficult for our father and mother regarding the culture maybe in France around entrepreneurship, as you just mentioned, and this fear of failing or trying and rotating, pivoting, whatever you put in. For me, it was also a way of being independent. Very young, my father was an entrepreneur, so always gave me the taste of working for your own and then to make a living out of it. And I was lucky to be supported here again a little bit, and therefore this is always something that caught my eyes. People that just believe in an idea, they found their why they're doing it, and therefore they follow it, and they create attention, and they just they're very proud of what they do, and it doesn't matter if you are making for my philosophy, if you're making a piece of bread, speaking for a French podcast, or if you lead for a multi-international company, you make your own as a living. You get up in the morning and you are very proud of what you do. And therefore, when I started my first company, I was 19 years old, and instead of I just got my BTS. I don't know if you can translate that as a bachelor or somehow in English, but I decided that instead of going to a business school and to spend a crazy amount of money out of it, I was about to just create something. And I was easy with tech, but I never learned tech. Like I enjoy back in the days to, make websites or coding a little bit. And I just like, I can try it, something very new. And so I had two concepts back in Burgundy. I was one of the youngest entrepreneur over there, and I was selling some remote access session for computer for remote worker. And then I found out a partnership with a company that was giving us some hotspot access, Wi-Fi in the hotel. But when you're in Burgundy, you have all of those Logis de France, which are beautiful and amazing old castle or old houses, but to get the Wi-Fi through the wall, it's impossible. So you have to go through the phone system, and somehow it was a great pleasure to be in my car and to look for new prospect to sail, but with all the default that you have at 20 years old. And then when the business starts to work a little bit and you start to make a little money, then you don't have a clue about what's going on tomorrow. You just live as you want to do, and therefore you crash because of that. So it's a learning process. It's a very fast learning process. So I was always very attracted to that, and very quick became the idea on how do I make something that counts in football, and how do I use those skills to benefit the community. And therefore my second business was an education, a massive online education platform back in the days with those MOOC and Spoke and however you call it. It was very early stage. And so I launched a platform where every coaches from Europe could just present their clinic, their knowledge online with a membership, and then you get a replay. And therefore the whole system was given to the French Federation when I was a part of the staff full time. So you see, one was a crash and a fast learning process, and the other one was a cool and very humble success. So it's not because you fail once that you should keep on going. This is football, Hey, there's a pick, you fumble the ball, next snap.
Yeah, and that's also something that I wanted to ask, because we have a specific theme and a special track as well on this podcast where we do invite entrepreneurs, especially those that have built up startups and scale-ups, and we like to ask them a bit about their journey and the skills they've learned along the way. And so, because we're a bit diverting here, can I ask you if you could just give one or two best advices or the key takeaways that you've had from your journey as an entrepreneur for the audience today, especially for those who are thinking about starting a career or progressing in their career today in the sports industry?
Yeah, and therefore I have to take a second to get back on, but I think it's how you translate the learning, and I took the learning from sports and basically from football to the business, and which means that playing as a team sports, football is the ultimate team sports. I mean, I played as an offensive lineman all my life, which means that I never scored a touchdown. I never even touched the ball, right? And I came from basketball, so I used to touch the ball a lot. So you learn sacrifice. You learn the power of the chain. The offensive line is as strong as the weakest lineman in the league. So you learn about that. You learn about leadership, because you have one quarterback on the field and you have to lead the whole team, and you lead about big mistake that makes the whole game or the whole season upside down. So you have to get back in the gym to work a lot, to learn, and you have to analyze your opponent, the competition. This is the scouting process, as they call it. So I translated a lot of that from sports into entrepreneurship, on how to lead a team, on how to try to reset as much as you can the project as soon as you need to pivot, or as you need to try another idea, or you need to listen your audience, and so all of that was very, 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 very useful. I'm not saying you can transpose it in every sports and in every time, but at least for me, in my own experience, this is what built me as an entrepreneur.
Yeah. No, surely, very interesting. I mean, you're not the first one I hear saying that, and I know that, I mean, American football and the philosophy behind it has a lot to teach us. I mean, you fail, but next one, you move on, you start again. So, no, very interesting. And just from what you've just said, I think we understand, I mean, from the audience, I guess,
Yep.
Since day one, you are true passionate about this sport, and you wanted to work in this sport in American football, being a professional player or on the administrative side, if you want. But today, you're not just like working in the sport. Yeah, I mean, you are at the top of the ladder. You are the president of IFAF, so the president of the International Federation for American Football. And so, can you tell us a bit what it is like? What does it take? What's your daily job, and how you've achieved that?
Well, I mean, the feeling is fantastic. The feeling is fantastic, but I always keep in mind that it's only a journey. The feeling is fantastic to be able to serve the sports and our global community to such um, a, a bigger level. An international federation is a governing body. You don't run it properly as a classic business. You are here to govern the development of the sports, the rule of the game. You have to work a lot on policies and how you help other country to grow. You don't, as an IF, as far as I know, and for our level, you don't really have an impact on what's going on the field in Ghana, in Japan, and in Honduras or whatever. But you are here to give the global vision, to give the global goal, and to stick with it. So this is the main job here. Of course, we try to cut business, we try to make some deal, we try to grow also our resources. But first of all, we are an international governing body, and therefore this is very important that so far our 72 members are being supported by us to grow the game, to referee, for example, curriculum, how to make sure that they have the same knowledge once again back in Canada, back in France, back in China, for example. Player welfare, the voice of the player. This is also, so I'm trying, of course, to bring a personal touch into that, because I'm as a former athlete and being the first one from Europe somehow, as a former athlete in the modern age, if I can put it that way, with this big Olympic goal. I really want to make sure that our IF is the voice of the athletes, and therefore it's like for us, by us, somehow, if you take some codes from the 90s, to bring the sports to the next level, because there is more and more opportunity, of course, with the National Football League, when I were one of our premium partners at IFAF, but also there are some professional leagues in Canada. There are some initiatives in Europe. There are some initiatives in Mexico. There is some league also in Japan. So there are more options every day than yesterday. There's more opportunity tomorrow than yesterday, every day in football. When you look at the NFL, which is obviously the last major league to open themselves on the international landscape, and you already like 206 players that hold a foreign passport within the National Football League. So this number is still at the very, very early stage. Same for the business. The majority of their revenue is right now in America, so you're going to have a lot of opportunity all over the world, and we should make sure to follow that, and to make sure that more and more kids are playing. Little boy, little girl. Obviously, flag football is big for the women's sports at the moment. So we offer opportunity. Just we talk about athlete's voice. As a woman right now in America, there's no way you play football professionally. There's no way you play flag football as a high level, because of what we are doing right now and our vision for 2028. We open a whole new pathway for hundreds and millions of young girls to be like, I will never be professional in sport I love, but maybe one day I'll be an Olympians, and being able as a president, as an IF, to just carry this message, for me is an amazing experience. And the pure business part of it, of course, you work with top world leader, with other sports, with the IOC, with other international federation, with the National Football League. Obviously, I met with Commissioner Goodall for the first time in person last week, and knowing where I come from, playing the game, and of course watching every weekend on TV, there was some great experience to be able to be with those guys.
Yeah, I think I understand that. I mean, I can fully understand that. And now I would like to move a little bit on the NFL and potentially the recent move they've made around flag football and the objective you have yourself for LA 2028, because I think it's very important for your organization and for you as an individual. I like on the podcast that people understand that as an organization, also your point is obviously you have a business element into it on how you grow the business and revenues, but the whole point is how you better redistribute that pie and that money generated to all levels, going from grassroots, from the communities, from the local players to the referees and the officiating side of the game. And so I think that's now quite clear as
Yeah.
well. And so going back to the NFL move, I think I would like to tap into that because you've been working at the French Federation for American Football, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, yeah. Director of development.
Okay, and so I guess like the business knowledge and understanding that you've developed during those years is quite useful today in your new position too. And so, okay, American football for most European, it's a game that few understand or that is played by and only for American or North American audiences. But the reality is that it's played today in more than 100 countries, and of the 400 million NFL fans, actually 216 million live outside the United States. And so, could you tell us why this sport is so popular, or why those big numbers?
I think that you can clearly see a real hype around football and flag football over the last few years, a bit before COVID, and of course a lot more. I mean, you spoke briefly about France, for example. We are one of the very tiny numbers of federation that beat again a record of members just right after COVID, being down 40% and breaking down the 25,000 members barrier once more right after COVID. So there's a hype that goes around this game because, of course, of the full marketing leverage of the National Football League, but it's also because for a while now you have a real link between how our society is moving in terms of lifestyle, in terms of um, social media, in terms of consuming contents. Obviously, obviously, you know that better than me. I'm talking to someone that's probably convinced about it. But I think of course the North American League are really an advance on that compared to some European professional club or league. But you brought something more out of it, which is about the lifestyle, which is how you identify yourself as a fan, to the athletes, but also to the brand that he carries and to the whole show that come with it. I mean, you have to understand globally for the audience that would discover American football, and especially in Europe. When we talk about the halftime Super Bowl concert, we talk about the biggest, somehow 15, 20 minutes of the year in the world of music. This is like you talk about those huge concert at at stadium and Allianz Arena, whatever, but the biggest stage on earth is the 15-20 minutes halftime show, for example. So it shows you all the power of attraction. I mean, just speaking with some friends at the NFL after the announcement of Rihanna, you are in less than 2 hours, you are top trend in the world because we talk about the Super Bowl and we talk about those star appeal, and you talk about those brands that actually come with it, and the whole show. So it's a different way of consuming sports that is more and more coming into Europe. Like there's a game happening, but you're here for the whole day. You're here for enjoying like a party, like a festival, which is more a Gen Z way of consuming the sports product. I know in Europe this turnaround is very complicated, and somehow we are very conservative about it. Um, at a very humble level, but being in charge of organizing in France for the FFFA, for example, and we try to get a touch of event around national team, for example, or around the Diamond Bowl, which is a championship game. But you see, it's another way to consume the product. So you have to be innovative, and if there's somewhere the National Football League are one of the best in the world is innovation. We talk about GenStat. We talk about the deal with Nicola Deon about youth broadcast, and they slime the entire end zone, for example, on TV. Um, you have to be you have to be very sure about your business to try those innovation, and somehow it works so far. Every first down they try was a success. So you have a hype going around it.
More than the sports, it's the entertainment around it, and as you mentioned, the lifestyle, how these sports engage younger audiences, but not just only younger ones, but around the lifestyle and the culture around. It is an entertainment thing around the product itself.
And the whole storytelling also. I mean, obviously last year the Super Bowl, you in Los Angeles, who do you bring on stage? Of course, top hip hop singer from the 90s, and therefore people from our generation can identify themselves. And despite if you know football or if you never have seen football, you know or you heard that it's even in France. That's the thing. I mean, we obviously work in France with Le Grand Rex in Paris, which is one of the oldest theater in Europe, and you see an appetite for just like, I'm gonna buy a ticket because I will come with my friends, I get a hot dog, I'm gonna buy a cap, I'm gonna buy a jersey, I'm gonna have a quiz online on the scene, I'm gonna win some gift, and somehow I will watch a game. In the middle, I'm gonna have Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg, and in the middle of nowhere, I mean, talking about France, which is very late in terms of culture compared to Germany, for example, and the business of football, you have like 500,000 people from midnight to 6 a.m. in the morning that tunes on TV. And no matter what, this night of the Super Bowl in France, despite the fact of being a very small sports and business, you're the top one audience in the country. And this is we talk about France because we have somehow a link with America. Obviously, the NBA is also a big merch seller. Is a big merchandise market for the NBA in France. But it's the same in Germany. We talk about 1.5 million people. It's the same in the UK. It's a strategic market are only starting to opening. So the hype will only grow, and therefore when you're a national governing body like the French Federation, you have to play with the vibe. It's You have to deploy some ambush marketing a little bit, so you benefit about the exposition, about the exposure of the sports, but you put the narrative and the message that you want to have in your own country, and this is what we did. So I'm glad about that, and the story repeat itself everywhere in the world.
Yeah, and so it's very complementary. So the idea is to have them succeed, and by the same time, you will have your own KPIs getting better and better, and engaging your own communities, having even more grassroots.
Yeah, this is a very unique. I will call it a joint venture with the NFL. We are the. I mean, somehow in the history of sports, we know that professional league and governing bodies are working hand to hand, sometimes easily, sometimes not. And for most of them, this come after collaboration from major event, World Championship, or of course you in the Olympics, and you want to have the best athletes. I mean, 92 Dream Teams, NBA, Jordan, and all that. But for the first time, we do it before. So we want to show our commitment into a long-term partnership, into growing the sport, because we don't want to wait for only one opportunity, which is the best of all. But we need to keep to get committed for the long term. So I would call that a joint venture. And when you are together in this kind of venture, you don't really compete. You find your own space. You find your own space to develop your own program. And I would put a very picture to understand the NFL job is to get billions of people watching and of course consuming the product and trying to enjoy all of the great show that this league has to propose. But therefore, we are here to make sure that you have seen a little football on TV, you like it, make sure we have a national governing body, we have a club, we have someone that you can try to play with. We have a sports offer that match your will, which is not always high level, but it could be, 3-on-3 style basketball. I really want to make the parallel here with 5-on-5 flag football because it's easy. You don't have field goal, you just have a pair of sneakers, flag football belt, one ball, 5-on-5. So there's a lot of opportunities here to kind of divert the eyeball of the NFL into people wearing sneakers and playing the game. And we take our fair share also of knowledge from the NFL as well. Like our welfare, for example, or the rule of the game, or in terms of policy and competition and game ops. It's also a very fast learning booster for our staff because we are a very young international federation. So being able to learn from the best is always the number one idea you should have. So we're very proud about that, definitely. And And the NFL needs international athletes to carry the game, and we have eyes all over the world.
In the recent years, it was more German focus as a key market first, and so why Germany, and how do you see that evolving over the next
Yeah,
years?
yeah, yeah.
Some people are referring to it as the next Champions League, but I think it's not very appropriate because it's soccer and it's a different sport. But how do you see the development of American football in a more European way? And maybe the first touch base is Germany, and so how do you see that?
For the first part, why Germany is a leading country of American football in Europe? This is a pure historical reason. As I mentioned before, Germany had no choice after World War II than to host many American bases, and after came the Cold War and all kind of stuff. So there is a very deep historical reason and historical culture on why Germany is a primary market, because obviously the German population were aware about these sports coming from America at a very early stage, and they never had any break. For us in France, the sports completely disappeared in '62, and it took one crazy pioneers, a sports teacher from LeCorner to just get in holiday and bring American football. That's the story of Laurent Plejlat, is our founder in France. But Germany didn't have that. Germany was obviously involved with the whole high school system, and therefore this is also why back in the days when we had the World League, which was a business-wise a crazy idea. How can you balance a budget and earn money by having Barcelona and Montreal playing every weekend in terms of travel? But when you see at the end the market was almost German, right? You had this World League that became NFL Europe, but you mostly had team in Germany. Team moved out from Amsterdam, from London, from Barcelona to relocate in Berlin or in Frankfurt, and so at the end it was mostly Germany league base, and therefore you had all the marketing power that comes with it to create fan base and all that. So there's many reasons, and there's also a population. In Germany they're like what 80, 85 million people living. So it's also more than France. So you have a math things here to do with football, but just to same here to illustrate the power of that is the NFL open up a new game that will happen in 1 month in Munich. Tom Brady will come in Europe. I mean, the story is the greatest player of the game will open a new market. It's fantastic. But in less than just a matter of few hours, they reach 500,000 and more requests. They could fill up 2 stadium in a matter of just few hours, a couple of days max. So that shows you the power of attraction of football over there. And you also have, the TV is investing a lot in content, in commitment, in fun stuff to watch with cool moderators. So there's also a way of some people in the media understood that soccer was a very competitive and expensive market where you need to reach the billion euros to hopefully get football in France. You can easily divide it by a very important numbers to get the NFL, and therefore you have a highly involved community, a very committed community, a very active community that interact, that post, that comment, that share. And so I believe that the return on invest at the moment is very interesting with football, and some channels, and specifically in Germany, decided to jump in. But the game in November will be a full success. We're gonna hear about it for a while, definitely.
Can you just tell us again, like the numbers around Germany, like the fan base and numbers you mentioned, like the highest revenues as well, which makes it easier to make the launch from there. If it is to grow as a competition or as a product, so where do you see it growing? You mentioned London, Barcelona, with some communities, but I guess there might be also like Austria, I guess.
Well, Austria is also a football country, but it's a very small. I mean, it's a football country by culture because, of course, you have some link with the media in Germany, and they are one of the best in Europe to play the game. But Austria, you live in a 5 or 6 million country, so of course the business that comes out of it is just a matter of big numbers. But I, there is some of course you have some historical base in Germany where you can build, but the rest in terms of business of leagues in Europe, it's a very tricky question that nobody solved so far. I mean the NFL Europe fold, and there are some initiatives going on right now. We're having some discussion with them, but American football is a matter of numbers, and therefore, when you have a professional team, you need to get 45 players. You need to get 12 or 15 people for the staff. So for transport, it has a cost. For merchandising gears, it has a cost. For insurance, it has a cost. So it's a game that doesn't break some business barrier out of the NFL at the moment because of the numbers. Which is why, as an IF, coming with flag on 5 breaks a lot of barrier. I mean, you play faster, you play without equipment, you play with less people. It's easier to broadcast. It's 2 times 20 minutes. We come with a lot of answer with another sports.
Yeah, and this is something I wanted to touch upon because from a pure investment perspective, I think American football is quite heavy, given the size of the team, of the administration, the number of players, medical staff. It's quite a lot of logistics, and so it's quite heavy on the investment side. And so, as it can be way more than in other sports, have you seen a trend compared to other sports where there is more investments or a bit less, more reluctance maybe to invest? Because the trend today for football, soccer, if you want, in Europe is quite heavy in terms of like in investment, especially coming from North America, where they see a lot of potential and value. And so we've seen plenty of North American players coming in and investing into different clubs or entities or brands. And so I was wondering whether it's the same trend or the same appetite to acquire new franchises, new clubs, but also buying shares from different VCs in leagues, or not at all.
Well, if you take sports on a global world market, you truly have a competition between American football and soccer. They are the only two sports boxing in this category. Um, I mean, of course, you have, cricket is having massive numbers, baseball, softball as well, rugby for Europe. I mean, I'm just talking in terms of those mega sports, if I can put it that way, in terms of money. You really look at soccer versus American football. The main difference is that American football just only start to get international when soccer tried to reach America on the other side. But there's a lot of cross opportunities. Obviously, the NFL now developed partnership with the Bundesliga in Germany. Teams are working to match athletes together. So you can see Mbappe kicking a field goal. You will see Odell Beckham Jr. Shooting a penalty. You have those crossover in terms of business, because ultimately what those leagues are doing is to grow awareness of their club, because I mean the NFL belongs to 32 teams, and those 32 teams, they want to expand their logo, their brand into a new market, and to grow new economy, and therefore what's the fastest then if you want to reach Paris as a market, if you want to reach France, then you have to work with Neymar, Mbappe, Messi. You have to work with all of those big names of the sports business. That's the best way to make people aware of your brand, like the NBA. And the last trend, the third trend that is very exciting for us in terms of opportunity is how you move around asset. And of course, there's a lot of assets that are shared between American football and soccer, with owners, with players that invest in teams. I mean, just thinking about the Glacier family, Tampa Bay and Manchester United, for example. Thinking about, I will probably misspell his name, but Mr. Khan, that was the owner, is the owner of Jacksonville. He was the owner of, or is the owner of Fulham, for example. So there's a lot of cross investment that are also happening here. Therefore, when you have the same shareholders, then you share the same interest of growing the same business. So you get this collaboration even more deeper, even more faster. and it served the brand. And for us, again, the brand awareness, more TV media means more players. So we find our own space.
Clearly, you can see some crossover between the different athletes or the different assets that you have to grow like a joint product or something bigger for your own sports. I have one question, and I really don't want to forget it. You've mentioned the innovation on the broadcast side, and how you tell stories, how you create new storytelling, how you bring that sport in a different manner. And so, in terms of content, when looking at the return on investment on your ROI, the model is interesting because as you mentioned, it's you don't have to pay lots of millions to access to it, and you can get like a free TV coverage to gain more and more communities and people to watch and engage with your sports. And so I wanted to ask you, do you have a specific strategy around that type of content, and even like for the non-live? I mean, we've all seen the impact of the F1 on Netflix with Drive to Survive series in terms of how other alternative formats can be interesting in a whole package to get more eyeball. So I was wondering, do you have like a specific strategy on that, around that content?
Well, obviously, the NFL players are doing their own story, and find a way to produce their own contents. I mean, obviously, there's a great series. I think it's on Disney Plus about Tom Brady, or the NFL is on Amazon with All or Nothing. HBO with the world famous Hard Knocks, for example, that show a little bit of the background and the inside of the team, which is a fantastic thing to see as a fan. Um, for us, as I said, our main goal at the moment is to be a governing body, and of course there will be some great story to tell when we would be successful for this Vision 28 project. Because, as I said, and especially for the young women all over the world, you there's millions of young women that love football, but they know from the beginning that they will never be able to play, because the NFL is a male league, and to be pro, you don't have a match of sports. Therefore, right now, you could one day maybe become an Olympians. Imagine the story. I mean, I was great person I work with, Diana Flores, the chair of her athlete commission, and she was a student. Her father liked football. Her mom wanted her to dance ballet, and then before she was going to the flag football practice a little bit on the side, like not telling everyone. And she started the World Cup. She was 16 years old, and right now she will just have the opportunity when about 30, 31 to maybe one day an Olympians. And this is just fantastic story that can be told. But this is globally for flag football and for the IF. Talking about American football specifically in Europe, we still miss um, the right player for that. We don't have, and as I mentioned, everybody has a different position. And obviously, I'm a big guy. I play offensive lineman. Never touch the ball. If you don't touch the ball, you're for the big audience. You are not a star. You're not the one throwing the pass. You're not the one flip side your way on the touchdown area, right? So right now, a lot of European athletes and international athletes are not there yet at the top level to be a star in the league. Some are developing very fast, like for example the Saint Bern brother. One is in the Detroit Lions, having a hell of a season. He's German. Jacob Jobson is playing for Vegas. He's German, but so far most of the European base and international base of athletes were mostly big guys or practice squad players, or so you don't get to give great story about them so far. So what I like to say in French, exactly, like I said in French, and for our market, our Tony Parker effect is still in the front of us. And it's the same story for Pau Gasol, for Dirk Nowitzki, for Yao Ming, for whoever international NBA players you get. This future is still in front of us. So great story will come. We are just not there yet in terms of high level sports.
Last point I wanted to discuss about, and by the way, thank you for all the answers and the transparency. I mean, truly enjoying it, and I really love like that I'm learning as I'm doing all the time this podcast, and I'm super grateful for that. But yeah, on the flag football, can you explain it to us? I mean, you've mentioned it several times already. And you've even explained the 5v5 game. But when you compare American football to flag football, is that the same analogy with the soccer and 5v5, or is it something different? And so ultimately, the question is like, we understand there might be less contact and less physical than traditional American football, if I can say. But long story short, what's the difference between American football and flag football? And is there a difference between the flag football and the 5v5 flag football too?
Yeah, if you watch an American football game, obviously you have 22 players on the field and you play on a large field. The first thing you will see in flag football is that we play 5-on-5. We play on a field that is 70 by 25 yards. So technically, you can make two field in one. So you have a shorter field of play. You can play man, you can play woman, but you can also play co-head. And it's a fun skill game. And once again, talking about my own example, I never touched the ball in American football, but in flag football, I can identify myself as a crazy 120, 130 kilo receiver, and I can be the star of my own in my garden because I believe that I'm at the Super Bowl scoring a touchdown. You can do that with flag football. And obviously in tackle football it's way more difficult. In terms of content as well, obviously you don't have a helmet, so you can see the players, you can see their face, you can see their emotion, you can see them wanting to win or being disappointed because they lost. All of that is you can see it with flag football. So you can clip, you can content, you can highlight, and broadcast wise we talk about twice 20 minutes. And everybody that watched American football game for the first time will be like, I don't understand anything and it's very long. Well, flag football is 2 times 20 minutes. You have 4 snaps to get in the middle, 4 snaps to score. That's it. And there's pass only game or pass first game. So very fun to watch. That's our ambition, and we are working every day to make it happen. That's the project of IFAF, and we were very fortunate to immediately receive full cooperation from the NFL from day one on this project. But we have ambition for 28.
Yeah, I understand that. Last question I had for you was around the last initiatives you've made around flag football. And I remember 2 of them, like the Global Football Ambassadors that we've launched recently, but also the World Games in Birmingham. And so what's your take on these 2 initiatives? Wheels are clearly in motion, and it's clear that you have a strategy and that you've already started to implement it. But what are the first key takeaways from you from that perspective?
That's what we believe. We believe that Paris, that LA is the right time and the right market. And here again, I mean, obviously you talk about storytelling, and sometimes things happen for a reason. But IFAF legal seat is in France, so we talk about a French-based international federation, and we are not so many. You talk about a French president. We are not so many here as well. You count it on one hand. I'm the youngest in the room by far, and on this matter. We have the Olympic in Paris. We have an American sports that has ambition for Los Angeles. So we have an opportunity from Paris to LA to throw this touchdown. And here again, the right market, the right time, the right moment. You have to provocate that. You have to play with it, and we believe we have some very, very good and convincing argument to aim for 28, but also for after. It's like football. You cannot do one and done. You have to go for the long run. So everybody talk about, of course, our will for being successful in inclusion for Los Angeles. But 32 is coming right ahead, just after, and we will obviously not be a sport in Paris. Everybody know that, but there's here some maybe to play around the diplomacy of French sports and having the NFL around some event in Paris. Obviously, Paris and France is a market for the NFL in the upcoming time. So things will happen this summer, next summer, and we have to be successful. But very important, and I really want to insist a little bit on that. Our primary target is to be a governing body, and therefore we cannot just focus on including flag in LA. We have to govern the sports and to make sure that they grow big, and safe for everyone. That's very important. It's a win-win-win. It's like us. It's like the IOC. It's like LA. It's a triple win situation for everyone, because you can obviously have some young audience. You have full power of course California is a big market, and Los Angeles is a big market for the NFL. You have this whole storytelling that come with it, so it's a win-win-win. It's a triple win. Well, first, the World Games were a fantastic experience because it was the first time that flag football was included in a multi-sports environment, among all the sports that could be potentially aware at the Olympics. So, in terms of experience for the athletes, once again, I put them here in the middle. You're in the village, and you have this. You rep the flag somehow. You represent your country. You're in a multi-sport environment. You have this whole world game vibe that come with it, with young sports or sports you're not used to watch in general. So this was a fantastic experience. I mean, we had it before with tackle in 2017 when France won the World Games, but we only had 4 teams, and here we had 2 times 8 teams, so more athletes, and with flag football that is way more inclusive than tackle. So fantastic experience, and for us it was really a statement on here we are, here what we can do, think about what we can become in 6 years at least. And we hopefully will be a part of the next World Games that will come in Chengdu. That's also a goal. So we want to be a part of the global sports family, and this was a statement for that. Therefore, the program of the Global Flag Ambassador is also a statement on how committed partners we are between the National Football League and us. For the first time, you can have Diana Flores and Dak Prescott on the same stage, speaking on the same passion of the game and the same goals aligned 100%. You probably also have seen that the Pro Bowl is turning into a flag football game right now. So there is some. We want to make sure that we don't only talk, but we do the walk, and this is what we do. There is some statement here that this is a long-term commitment, and we are dedicated to succeed. We will see about the result. It's sports. Sometimes you win, sometimes you learn, but we are committed to make sure that we succeed in this campaign.
I know, but I hope you will learn soon enough to be successful at the end of the day. And yeah, I like the win or you learn. I mean, yeah, I like it. And so yeah, last one for me. I know we've been running a bit out of time here, and sorry about this. We usually end up asking a question around if you have any kind of recommendation for our audience, for our listeners, working in the sports industry or aspiring to work within it, a book, a podcast, a movie, whatever that can be, but something you would recommend to them.
Well, I did my homework a little bit, and I think if you wanna discover what is American football, obviously HBO Arnox is a must see because you see how big this is and the logistic for the games and the practice, the scouting. Like you don't see a minute of a game, but you see everything which is around. It's fantastic. If we talk about a book in general leadership, I'm reading a lot about Simon Sinek, Leader It Last, or The Infinite Cycle. This is something I really appreciate, and I wanted to make a little wink at the end. I would recommend a book from Johan Heisenberg that's called The League, because this is a great story of football. And the pitch is how 5 rivals created the NFL and launched a sports empire. Before being on a very dominant position on the market, the NFL is more about getting together, work together for the common benefit. And this is so much football. This is so much the ultimate team sports. And it defines so much about how the American sports model is. So this is very interesting read. And therefore, not everything is to transpose in Europe, but we should. I think if I want to put a little opening to the end of this discussion, I'm a strong defender, and I think that we need to get faster in Europe to get our own European model of sports. This is very important, because obviously we're going to have to defend our continental interest and our continental particularities with different country governing the sports in a different way. So the European model of sports is very, very, very important for me. And I believe there are some good things in what the National Football League and others have made before.
Yeah, okay, no, I like it. Because you're just listening to us and you cannot see us. I mean, Pierre was just pointing at me and raising with his hand the books. So now I have a good screenshot of that cover, and I need to make sure I can read it properly. Especially since I'm truly in favor of the European model for sports, and I know it has its benefits, but I think to a certain extent it also needs to be redefined, and we cannot just only copy the North American model, but still the European model of sports needs to be redefined a little bit. So I'm sure I will enjoy that reading. And so thank you for this. Thank you, Pierre, again. Thank you for the time. Thank you for the transparency and for letting us know about these new sports. I truly enjoyed it, like I said. I hope everybody enjoyed it too, and see you next time.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Jean-Baptiste. Thank you for all the team for having me. It was very fun.
Thanks for listening to our podcast. We hope you enjoy it as much as we love creating them. If you like the episode, feel free to comment, rate, and share with people around you. You can visit our website, www.lastsource.io, to learn more about our activities. You will discover a wide range of articles and can subscribe to our newsletter to receive the latest tech and sports news in your mailbox every month. Stay tuned for new episodes.
Le Corner.